And our question was, there's a lot of blockchain projects out there, and we were kind of wondering, are these initiatives trying to solve everything? We were trying to gauge where we would fit in. You know, it's not always easy. Everybody kind of thinks that if you have an innovation strategy, you now have to have blockchain in it. It's kind of like back in the day, every bank had to have an innovation lab, and every company had to have an incubator, and somebody had to have a sandbox. You know, it almost became a bit of a playground. But anyway, the point being is that we really wanted to look internally and say, where do we add value? So what we did was we came up with a model which we called the 3 Vs. And the 3 Vs are effectively value, volume, and venue. So if you can just imagine that the value and volume are depicted on the respective indices, and imagine venue going across the page. So venue is not really depicted on this. So we looked at where does Thomson Reuters currently serve. And we looked at the top right. So the top right was effectively what we call high value, high volume. So this is a well-established key infrastructure. We believe we may get there, but it is not an immediate priority. So once again, this was also about prioritization. We wanted to look at where can we add immediate value? Where can we really come up with something that the market can actually use? We then looked at the bottom left. And this is not our transaction market. This is really not where we play, but it's an extremely exciting market, but not relevant to us. So that one kind of got scrapped. Bottom right, machine age. We spoke about it a little bit earlier. I think we spoke about Internet of Things, sensors. Fazan mentioned all of that this morning. I think IoT offers huge opportunity in the space, but once again, very interesting space, but somewhat further into the future from where we are looking. And it reminded us of the need to focus on what's in the short term. So that left us with one block, and that's the left quadrant at the top. And this is what we call big ticket items, where the values are high, but the volumes are limited. And as an example, if you think about private equity transactions, they're few and far between. They don't happen very often, but they have significant values attached to them. And to be honest with you, that's where the blockchain infrastructure stands today. I know we've been talking about Lightning, we've been talking about the future of the network and the speed of the network, but really the blockchain plays into the high value and if I can say at the low volume side. So we had to narrow down our focus and to effectively look at the technology. And this is what we call the technology stack. And really, if you look at this list, most of them are familiar to us and doesn't look very different to what we see today. We would typically call this the business logic, if you want to call it the business logic around that. And effectively, the interesting bit that stands out is the one in the middle, tokens. So we've heard a little bit about tokens. And the 3 things that we really found about tokens is that there are 3 types of tokens. An intrinsic token, like Bitcoin, which is an example of that, as I said, is where transaction is used as a mechanism to transfer something of value. So Bitcoin has a value and it gets transferred. The second one is what we call an asset token. So oil is an example. It's got an underlying value in terms of you've got something tangible. There's a tangible asset that's got an underlying value. And then third is what we call a rights-back token. So a rights-back token is interesting because that's something where you have the right to use it, but you never own it. So if you used a practical example like a rental car, you have the right to use that car but you never get to own it. So that was quite interesting in terms of where we saw it in terms of the tokens. And I think one of the interesting things that comes out of this is the interest that comes out of where tokens will go and how these will be classified. And we heard about that earlier in terms of how do you define it. We heard yesterday, how do you define a cryptocurrency? Is it a currency? Is it an asset? Is it a commodity? Etc. I think what's resulted out of this is we looked at areas that start impacting the business. And typically what we're finding is a lot of different parties coming to play in this field. So you've seen a lot of experts coming out. As I say, we looked at legal and oracles. We have a company, as a disclaimer, we've got a company called Westlaw, which is a legal company within our stable. So we were quite interested to see what's happening in the legal space. And really the oracles was the one that excited us the most. So what did we look at? We looked at on-chain and off-chain. I think everybody knows what on-chain and off-chain is. Do I need to explain it? No. Okay, cool. We can move on from that. So on-chain, off-chain, we looked at it as what value can we provide off-chain. So remember, as an Oracle, we're off-chain. We're not on-chain. So we effectively looked at benchmark values, and specifically in the area of derivatives and smart contracts. And what we have, to really go through it quite quickly, is we've created a proof of concept, and it's called Block 1 IQ. And Block 1 IQ effectively interacts with Corda and Ethereum. And what we do is we effectively provide this data, this information, into those platforms or those networks at the moment. We are looking for other opportunities. We haven't had a demand as yet, but we have been speaking to Quorum and Hyperledger as well. So those are really areas that we had to use when we tested our hypothesis to see where the need was. I think the one thing that's important to remember here is that as you become familiar with this, you start to realize that more and more requirements have come through. So just to give you an example, we have that list. That is just a kind of I would say an example of our data capabilities that we provide. We're effectively a data provider. So what you'll see there is you'll see a subset or a limited amount of data, and that was really because it was seen to be an area where people could relate to. People can all relate to share prices, they can all relate to foreign exchange rates, corporate actions, cryptocurrency rates, financial benchmarks, and we even, what we say is we drink our own champagne. And what we do is we use that internally for our knowledge graph as well. So we're feeding off the blockchain into an application that we provide to our customers called Knowledge Graph. But I think the point being is that we're doing this as an on-demand requirement. So a request that's come through is now to hold or to carry commodity prices. So we'll be adding commodity prices to this beta shortly. Another area that we really focused on was around identity. We realized that identity is critical, but identity from a different perspective. So we look at it from a perspective is that with data, especially in our business and that, we need to know who's requesting the data, and equally, the receiver of the data knows where they're sourcing that data for. Because remember, it's all about trust. The last thing I want to just mention is that everything comes at a cost. So what you want to do is when you're looking at your blockchain projects, make sure that you're creating ecosystems that leverage new technology guarantees to enhance trust. The question is, how many data items does Thomson Reuters distribute per second? Okay, I'll take the closest 100,000. How's that? Okay, does that give a bit of a hint? Okay, any other takers? Huh? Okay, so what I've got, 500,000, 700,000, 1,000. Okay, who said 700,000? Okay, so we do 800,000 data items per second. Can I throw that across to you? There you go. Yeah. Enjoy the coffee, I promise you it's good. Okay, so I think the last thing I want to just mention is that everything comes at a cost. So what you want to do is when you're looking at your blockchain projects, make sure that you're creating ecosystems that leverage new technology guarantees to enhance trust. Just to give you another last figure, just as food for thought, because Lauren's going to kick me off now. We did an analysis. So to give you an example, to store this amount of data that I mentioned to you, because everybody says let's store the data on the blockchain. To give an example, to store this amount of data on Ethereum would cost around 5.7 billion rand a day. On Amazon S3, it would cost us the equivalent of 68,000 rand a day. So we have to look at that in context and say, look and make sure you're adding value. But that's me. There's the link. If you guys go onto the link there, you can sign up to the development site. Alternatively, you can get hold of me on LinkedIn or Twitter. And as I say, it's just my parting quote, be present, be appreciative, enjoy the ride. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, man. I'm so sorry, man.
No, don't
to do that.
No, it's okay.